What if I told you there's a technology that lets you send money, verify ownership, track goods, or even vote in an election without needing a middleman, a bank, or anyone in charge? That technology exists. It's called blockchain. Blockchain is much deeper than that. It's a whole new way of organizing trust in the digital world. Today, banks can block your transactions, governments can censor or manipulate data, payment providers charge fees, hold your money, or just randomly ban you. In 2008, the world was in chaos. Big banks were collapsing, entire economies were shaking. Out of this mess, an anonymous figure named Satoshi Nakamoto dropped something into a cryptographic mailing list that would change everything. Every transaction is verified by the network and permanently recorded in blocks that are chained together. Blockchain isn't just about crypto, it's about trust without middlemen. We're still in the early stages, like the dial-up internet days, but the use cases are growing so fast. By the end of this video, you'll not only understand it, you'll probably be able to explain it better than most people who work in crypto. I know we're about to get into the good stuff, but real quick, 84% of you guys that watch my videos haven't subscribed yet. So I would like to ask you for a favor before we start. If you like the content and like what we're doing here and you want to support us, the free, simple way you could do that is by hitting that subscribe button. And our commitment to you, if you do that, me and my team will do everything in our power to make sure the content gets better for every single week. So let's get into it. Let me ask you this. What if I told you there's a technology that lets you send money, verify ownership, track goods, or even vote in an election without needing a middleman, a bank, or anyone in charge? Sounds wild, right? Almost too good to be true. Well, that technology exists. It's called blockchain. And no, it's not just about Bitcoin or buying monkey pictures online. Blockchain is so much deeper than that. It's a whole new way of organizing trust in the digital world. In this video, we're going to dive deep, not just into what blockchain is, but how it works step by step, why it's such a revolutionary idea, and what it actually does behind the scenes. If you've ever felt like people throw around blockchain buzzwords without explaining them clearly, don't worry, I'm going to break it all down in a way that makes sense. Whether you're a beginner or someone who's heard the word hashing way too many times without knowing what it actually means. We'll talk about its origin story, the tech that powers it, why it's considered tamper-proof, how transactions get confirmed, and how blockchain is already changing industries beyond just finance. So buckle up, you're about to get the clearest, most complete explanation of blockchain you've ever heard. And by the end, you'll not only understand it, you'll probably be able to explain it better than most people who work in crypto. Let's start off with the origins of blockchain. Let's take a step back and ask, why was blockchain even needed? To answer that, we need to talk about one of the biggest problems in digital communication: trust. See, when we interact in person, whether it's trading goods or shaking on a deal, trust is built naturally. But online, everything changes. If you're buying something from someone in another country, how do you know they'll even send it? If you wire money, how can you be sure it won't get intercepted, changed, or reversed? So over the years, we've built institutions to be the middlemen of trust. Banks, governments, payment processors, notaries. They all act as gatekeepers to validate and record our actions. That system has worked to an extent, but it's not perfect. Banks can block your transactions, government can censor or manipulate data, payment providers charge fees, hold your money, or just randomly ban you. And all of them become single points of failure. If they get hacked, corrupted, or shut down, you're out of luck. Now, here's where blockchain comes in. Let's flash back to 2008. The world was in chaos. Big banks were collapsing, entire economies were shaking. People were losing losing trust in traditional financial institutions. Out of this mess, an anonymous figure named Satoshi Nakamoto dropped something into a cryptography mailing list that would change everything. A 9-page white paper titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Now, on the surface, it looked like someone was trying to create internet money, which had been attempted before. Projects like DigiCash, B-Money, and Hashcash all tried it in the 90s and early 2000s. But they never solved one key problem, the double spending problem. Double spending is when someone spends the same digital money twice. Unlike physical cash, which you can only give away once, digital files can be copied. So how do you stop someone from copying a Bitcoin and sending it to multiple people? Satoshi's breakthrough was the blockchain, a decentralized, time-stamped ledger that lives across thousands of computers. Every transaction is verified by the network and permanently recorded in blocks that are chained together. The beauty of this is there is no single person or server in charge, no bank, no government, just math and consensus. But here's what's wild. Satoshi didn't invent blockchain from scratch. He combined multiple technologies that already existed. Merkle trees from the 70s to verify large amounts of data efficiently. Hash functions to secure the data and make it tamper evident. Proof of work, originally used to stop email spam, to reach consensus in a trustless environment. A peer-to-peer networking popularized by things like BitTorrent. It was like a perfect recipe. All the ingredients were there, but nobody had combined them like this before. The first Bitcoin block was mined on January 3rd, 2009, now known as the Genesis block. Fun fact, embedded inside it was a hidden message from Satoshi. 3rd January 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. A timestamp and a message, not just a reference to the financial crisis, but a statement, a subtle jab at the failures of traditional banking and a quiet declaration of something new being born. At that time, barely anyone noticed. A few cypherpunks and tech geeks saw it as a cool idea, but slowly Bitcoin grew. People started mining it on their home computers. The first known commercial transaction was 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. Yeah, that happened in 2010, and no, the guy never got those Bitcoins back. But here's the real turning point. As developers started looking at the blockchain code, they realized something. This wasn't just money. It was a platform, a new way to store data, build apps, and create entire systems without needing a central authority. That's when Ethereum came along in 2015 and said, hey, what if we took blockchain and made it programmable? What if people could build anything like apps, games, contracts on top of it? And that kicked off what we now call Web3, a new era of internet services that are open, decentralized, and powered by blockchain technology. So to recap, blockchain didn't just emerge out of nowhere. It was the result of decades of cryptographic research combined with the philosophy of decentralization and born out of a financial crisis that exposed the cracks in our global system. And the goal is to create systems that don't require you to trust people, banks, or platforms. You just trust the protocol because it's open, verifiable, and immutable. And that's exactly what we're about to explore next. Because now that you know why blockchain exists, let's get into the real question. What exactly is blockchain? You've probably heard people or me say that it's a digital ledger or a chain of blocks. Sounds simple, right? But what does that mean? Let's break it down starting from the basics. Think of blockchain like a book of records. Imagine you're keeping a notebook. Every time someone gives you money, money or you pay someone, you write it down line by line. You include the data, the amount, and who it was with. That notebook is your ledger, a record of all your transactions. Now imagine that everyone in your neighborhood is also writing in the same notebook. But here's the twist. Nobody is in charge of the notebook. Everyone has a full copy of it, and once a page is full, it gets sealed forever. Oh, and you can't go back and erase anything. That's the core idea of blockchain. It's a digital public shared ledger that records information in a way that's transparent, secure, and permanent. So what's inside a block? Let's zoom into one of those blocks. A block is basically a container of data, and here's what's inside. It's a list of transactions. Think of this as the content of the page. Who sent what to whom, how much, and when. Secondly, there's a timestamp. This marks the exact time the block was created. 3, we have nonce, a random number used during the mining process. We'll get to that soon. 4th, we have hash of the block. This is like the block's fingerprint, a unique code that represents all the data inside the block. And 5th, we have hash of the previous block. And this is what links the blocks together. It's like a reference code to the block before it. This last part is super important. Every block contains the fingerprint of the one before it. That's how the chain in blockchain works. So if someone tries to change the data in a block, even just a small amount, it will change its fingerprint. And if that fingerprint no longer matches the next block's reference, there you go. The entire chain breaks. That's what makes blockchain tamper resistant. Now, let me give you an analogy. The tamper-proof chain is like Jenga with super glue. Imagine you're stacking blocks of Jenga. Each block has a label that includes the exact label of the one below it. If someone tries to go back and replace, say, block 3, they have to also change block 4 and 5 and everything after. And here's the kicker. While they're trying to secretly rebuild that tower, the rest of the network is still adding new blocks every few minutes. So the attacker is always behind. That's what makes blockchain secure without needing someone like a bank or government to guard it. Now let's talk about hashes because they're the magic glue behind all things. A hash function takes any input, like a sentence, a file, or a whole block of transactions and turns it into a fixed length code. For example, you could feed in Alice sent 2 Bitcoin to Bob on January 5th, 2023. And the hash might look like this. This is just an example. It's actually way longer. Even the tiniest change, like changing the 2 Bitcoin to 2.01 Bitcoin, will create a completely different hash. Hashes are one way, meaning you can go from data to hash, but not from hash to data. So once something is hashed, you can't reverse engineer it. That's why blockchain data is so secure. All right, let's move on to blocks. Blocks are created through a process called mining. Proof of work. Let's say you want to add a new block. In Bitcoin's case, that means you need to go through a process called mining. Mining is kind of like a digital lottery. Miners around the world compete to solve a complex math puzzle. The puzzle is to find a nonce that, when hashed with the rest of the block's data, produces a hash that starts with a certain number of zeros. Why zeros? I'm glad you asked. It's just a part of the rule. The more zeros required, the harder the puzzle. Once someone finds the correct answer, they shout to the network, "I found it! Here's the block." Other nodes verify the solution, and if it checks out, the block is added to the chain and everyone updates their copy of the ledger. That whole process, it happens every 10 minutes on Bitcoin. And the winning miner gets rewarded with some freshly minted Bitcoin. That's their incentive. So who runs the blockchain? No one. and everyone. Blockchain is decentralized, meaning no central authority controls it. Instead, thousands of computers called nodes store copies of the blockchain. They constantly talk to each other and make sure they're in sync. If someone tries to cheat, say spend the same money twice, the network will detect the inconsistency and reject it. That's the beauty of decentralization. It's trustless, not because there's no trust, but because you don't have to place your trust in any one person. All right. So we know what a blockchain is and what's inside a block. Now let's walk through exactly how blockchain works step by step, from the moment someone sends a transaction to when it gets confirmed and recorded forever. I want you to picture this like a digital relay race. Multiple steps, each depending on the one before it, and everything being watched by the entire network. Step 1, a transaction is initiated. Let's say you want to send a Bitcoin to your friend, Josh. You open your crypto wallet and enter Josh's crypto address. You type in the amount, hit send, and there you go. You've just created a transaction. Crypto addresses are long and not very memorable or human readable. So ENS, Ethereum Name Service, has actually found a way to make these addresses easy to handle. I have a whole video on that. I will link it right here. Make sure to go check that out. Thank me later. Okay, let's keep going. What happens after you've created a transaction? Here's what actually happens under the hood. Your wallet digitally signs the transaction using your private key, like your password, but with way more security. It includes important data, your wallet address, Josh's address, the amount, and sometimes a small transaction fee to incentivize miners. This signed transaction is now a piece of data that proves, yes, you are the rightful owner of that Bitcoin and you're sending it to someone else. Step 2, the transaction gets broadcast to the network. Your transaction is then sent to the Bitcoin network, thousands of computers or nodes scattered across the world. These nodes do a few things. They verify that your digital signature is valid. They check whether your address actually has the funds to send. If everything looks good, they add your transaction to a waiting area called the mempool, short for memory pool. Think of the mempool like a big digital lobby where transactions wait to be picked up by miners. Step 3, miners pick transactions and build a block. Now comes the mining part. Miners are computers, or more often entire warehouses full of computers that gather transactions from the mempool and bundle them into a new block. But they can't just submit the block right away. They have to do something first. Solve a cryptographic puzzle. This puzzle is part of the proof of work system used by Bitcoin. It's designed to be extremely hard to solve, but easy to verify. Think of it like a game where you're rolling dice over and over again, trying to get a super specific number, millions of times per second. This process involves finding a special number called a nonce, which when combined with the block's data and passed through a hash function, produces a hash that meets a strict condition, usually starting with a certain number of zeros. Because, as I mentioned earlier, it makes the puzzle harder. The more zeros required, the harder it is to find a valid hash. So miners are racing. They're all trying to be the first one to find that golden nonce. Step 4, a valid block is found and broadcast eventually. Maybe after 10 seconds, maybe after a few minutes, one miner finds the solution. Let's say it's a miner in Canada. They shout to the rest of the network, I found the valid block, and here's the hash, the nonce, the data, everything. Now the other nodes verify the block. They check all the transactions inside it. They confirm the hash is correct. They make sure the block refers to the previous block's hash, maintaining the chain. If everything checks out, the block gets added to the blockchain and everyone updates their copy. And just like that, your one Bitcoin to Josh is now permanently recorded on the blockchain. It's irreversible, it's public, and it's secured by the combined computing power of the entire network. Step 5. the miner gets rewarded. This is so important. The miner who found the correct block doesn't just get a round of applause. They get paid. This is the block reward, and it includes a fixed amount of newly minted Bitcoin. Right now, it's 3.125 Bitcoin per block as of the latest halving, plus all the transaction fees from the transactions inside that block. This reward is what keeps miners motivated to keep the network running. Now, here's a key detail. Bitcoin blocks are produced every 10 minutes on average. That timing is not random. It's built into the difficulty of the puzzle. If miners get too fast at solving it, the network increases the difficulty. If they get too slow, it lowers the difficulty. This keeps block production steady. Step 6. Technically, your transaction is confirmed as soon as it's included in a block. But in practice, people wait for multiple confirmations. And why is this? Because while rare, sometimes two miners find valid blocks at almost the same time, this creates a temporary fork. Two versions of the blockchain. Eventually, the longer chain wins because more work went into it, and the shorter one is discarded. So if your transaction is included in a block that later gets discarded, it disappears. But if it's 6 blocks deep, the odds of it being reversed are nearly zero. That's why major exchanges often wait for 6 confirmations before considering a Bitcoin transaction final. Okay, quick recap. Let's run through it again. You create and sign a transaction. It's broadcast to the network and enters the mempool. A miner picks it up and includes it in a block. The miner solves a difficult puzzle and broadcasts the block. Other nodes verify the block and add it to the chain. Your transaction becomes part of the official blockchain history. And all of this without any bank, central server, or government involved. Just code, cryptography, and global consensus. Now that you've seen blockchain in action, one big question still remains. How do all these nodes, these computers, agree on what's real and what's true? Especially when someone might be dishonest. That's where the consensus mechanism comes in. And trust me, they're one of the most fascinating parts of the entire system. They're the heartbeat of any blockchain, the system that allows a decentralized network of strangers to agree on a single version of truth without ever needing to trust each other. Let's dive in. What is consensus? In simple terms, consensus just means agreement. Imagine a Google document shared by 10,000 people. Anyone can add to it, but they all need to agree on which version is the latest and most accurate. Otherwise, chaos. Blockchain solves this using consensus algorithms, like rules that everyone follows to agree on which transactions are valid, which blocks should be added next, who gets rewarded. I mean, different blockchains use different types of consensus mechanisms, but let's explore the most common ones. Proof of work, POW. This is the original. It's what powers Bitcoin. And here's how it works. Miners compete to solve a difficult math puzzle using trial and error. The first one to solve it gets to add the new block to the chain and earns a reward. We talked about this earlier. It's the mining process. And why is it secure? Because solving the puzzle takes real-world resources. Electricity, specialized hardware, time to hack Bitcoin. You'd need to control more than 50% of the total mining power, which would cost billions of dollars and could still fail. It's like trying to rewrite history with the world watching and verifying everything you do. Pros of proof of work is battle-tested and highly secure. It's decentralized and it's resistant to cyber attacks where one actor pretends to be many. Cons, it has like massive energy consumption, slow transaction speed, and expensive to scale. And that's why other systems started looking for better alternatives. Secondly, we have proof of stake. Instead of using hardware and electricity to win the right to add a block, POS relies on something different. Wealth. Here's the idea. Validators, instead of miners, are chosen to create the next block based on how much crypto they have staked, meaning locked up as collateral. The more you stake, the higher your chance of being selected. But if you try to cheat, you lose your stake. It's like putting your money where your mouth is. An example for this is Ethereum. Ethereum used to be proof of work, but in 2022, it transitioned to proof of stake with the merge. Now, if you want to help secure the Ethereum network, you stake Ethereum. The minimum is 32 ETH to run your own validator node. So what are the pros of proof of stake? It's way more energy efficient than proof of work. Faster transaction speeds, lower barriers to entry, no expensive mining rigs. The cons are that it's still new and less battle tested than proof of work. Wealthier users get more control, and it does have potential centralization risks. Then we have delegated proof of stake, DPoS. This is a twist on the regular proof of stake used by blockchains like EOS and Tron. In DPoS, coin holders vote for a small group of delegates who are responsible for validating transactions and adding to blocks. It's like electing block producers. The more coins you have, the more voting power you get. And the pros here are that it's super fast and scalable. It is energy efficient. And the cons are that it's less decentralized. Only a few delegates do the work. It can turn into a popularity contest or even a cartel-like behavior. And as for other mechanisms, there are other consensus systems out there. Here are a few you might hear about. Practical Byzantine Fault Tolerance, PBFT, used by private blockchains, designed for fast agreement with fewer nodes. Proof of Authority, POA, only pre-approved nodes can validate blocks, used in enterprise blockchains. Proof of Space, Proof of Burn, Proof of History, yeah, it gets creative. Each one has its own trade-offs between security, speed, decentralization, and energy use. So which one is the best? That's like asking, what's the best tool, hammer or screwdriver? It depends on the job. Bitcoin sticks with proof of work because its primary focus is security and decentralization. Ethereum moved to proof of stake to scale better and reduce its carbon footprint. Enterprise blockchains might use faster but more centralized methods like POA or PBFT. There's no one size fits all answer. The real innovation is that we now have options. Before blockchain, if you wanted to agree on something globally, you needed a central authority. Now you just need consensus. Without the consensus mechanism, blockchain wouldn't work. You'd have a network full of conflicting versions, fake transactions, and people constantly arguing about what's real. But thanks to consensus, blockchains are resilient. They can handle bad actors and keep running. They're fair. Everyone follows the same rules, and they're decentralized. No one needs to be in charge. And most importantly, they scale trust, not just between two people, but across the whole world. Okay, so up until now, we've mostly looked at blockchain in the context of Bitcoin and money. But here's the exciting part. Blockchain isn't just about digital currencies. It's a foundational technology like the internet. And just like the internet started with email and ended up changing everything from retail to entertainment, blockchain is starting with crypto, but expanding far beyond it. Let's look at some of the most powerful real-world use cases for blockchain technology beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum. Let's look at some of the most powerful real-world use cases for blockchain technology beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum. First off, supply chain tracking. Have you ever wondered where your food comes from? Or if that designer bag is actually real? Blockchain makes supply chains transparent. Every step of a product's journey, from raw material to retail shelf, can be recorded immutably. For example, Walmart uses blockchain to track the origin of food like mangoes and pork in seconds instead of days. Luxury brands use it to prove product authenticity, preventing counterfeits. Each transaction or movement is a new block, harvested, packaged, shipped, delivered. And since you can't alter a block once it's recorded, the entire chain becomes tamper-proof. Secondly, we have the digital identity. Like right now, your identity is scattered Your passport is in one place, your medical records is in another, your online accounts are all over the place. Blockchain offers a way to create a single, secure, self-sovereign identity, something you control, not governments or corporations, just you. With blockchain-based identity, you could prove who you are online without giving away your password. Own your health records and grant access only when needed. Control your personal data rather than letting companies sell it. Projects like Civic, Sovereign, and Microsoft's ION are already exploring this space. And then we have voting systems, election fraud, and vote tampering. These are huge concerns worldwide. With blockchain, we could finally have transparent, verifiable, and tamper-proof voting. Each vote becomes a transaction on a blockchain, recorded publicly, counted instantly, and impossible to alter without detection. Imagine voting from your phone, seeing your vote recorded in real time, verifying the final count for yourself. Countries like Estonia have already explored blockchain-based e-voting. It's not science fiction, it's just not widely adopted yet. Let's be honest, medical data is a mess. Blockchain can help patients own their complete medical history and securely share it across hospitals, doctors, and even countries. This would eliminate duplicate tests, prevent prescription errors, make emergency care faster and more accurate. Companies like MedRec and Burst IQ are working on this and making health data secure, private, and interoperable. And fifth, we have real estate and land titles. If you want to buy property, the paperwork right now is outdated. It's slow and filled with room for fraud. Blockchain can digitize land records, title transfers, and ownership histories, making them verifiable and tamper-resistant. This is huge in countries with corruption or unclear property laws. Projects in Georgia, India, and Sweden are already putting land titles on chain to protect ownership and speed up real estate deals. Sixth, we have decentralized finance, DeFi. Even though this still falls under the crypto umbrella, DeFi is its own revolution. Blockchain lets people lend and borrow money, earn interest, trade assets, provide liquidity, all without banks. Platforms like Uniswap, Aave, and Compound offer financial services that run entirely on smart contracts. No paperwork, no banks, no business hours, just open code. Billions of dollars now move through DeFi every day, showing the real power of programmable money. So what's the bigger picture here? At its core, blockchain is above verifiable truth without needing a middleman. And that concept can be applied anywhere you need trust. Logistics, identity, ownership, reputation, access control. We're still in the early stages, like the dial-up internet days, but the use cases are growing fast. All right, up until now, we've talked a lot about what makes blockchain revolutionary. But here's the honest truth. Blockchain is not perfect. Like any technology, it has some real challenges. And if we're going to understand it properly, we need to look at both sides of the coin. Let's talk about the biggest limitations holding blockchain back from mass adoption today. First off, we have scalability. This is one of the blockchain's biggest bottlenecks. The more people that use the network, the slower and more expensive it can get, especially on older blockchains like Bitcoin or Ethereum pre-upgrade. Why? Well, because every full node stores a copy of the entire blockchain, and every transaction must be processed by the whole network. That's incredibly secure, but also incredibly slow. Bitcoin handles around 7 transactions per second. Ethereum, pre-scale, handled 15 to 30 transactions per second. Compare that to Visa, which handles over 24,000 transactions per second. This is why fees sometimes spike like crazy during peak usage. Imagine paying $40 just to send $10. Not ideal, right? Solutions are being developed like layer 2 systems, Lightning Network rollups, and more scalable blockchains like Solana, Avalanche, and Aptos. But scalability is still an ongoing battle. Secondly, we have energy consumption. Proof of work blockchains like Bitcoin are incredibly secure, but they use a lot of electricity. Bitcoin mining uses more energy than some countries. Seriously, it's been compared to the energy usage of Argentina. Now, that's not entirely wasted. Miners are securing a multi-trillion-dollar network, but it's still a major environmental concern. That's why newer blockchains are switching to proof of stake and other energy-efficient consensus models. Ethereum, for example, cut its energy use by over 99% when it moved from proof of work to proof of stake in 2022. Still, energy remains a hot topic, especially for Bitcoin, which still runs on proof of work. Thirdly, we have regulation and legal uncertainty. Here's where things get tricky. Blockchain and crypto operate across borders, but laws don't. Governments around the world are still trying to figure out how to regulate crypto assets, tokenized securities, smart contracts, DeFi platforms. Some countries embrace it, others ban it outright. Some just haven't made up their minds. And because of this legal uncertainty, many businesses hesitate to adopt blockchain fully. They don't want to build on a foundation that might be outlawed next year. Stable, clear regulation is key to wider adoption. Fourthly, we have the user experience. Let's be honest, blockchain is still way too complicated for most people. Long wallet addresses like this. As I mentioned, ENS does solve this, so go check that video out. This is the link. Seed phrases, you have to hide like treasure maps. There is no forget password button if you mess up. And then we have wallets, gas fees, slippage, bridging. Yeah, it's a lot. If you lose your private key, you lose access to your funds forever. There's no help desk, there's no undo button. For blockchain to go mainstream, it needs to feel invisible like the internet does today. Most people don't care how TCP/IP works, right? They just want to watch Netflix or send a message. Blockchain has to get to that level of simplicity. Fifth, we have data privacy and storage. Blockchains are transparent by default. That's great for auditability, but not so great if you're dealing with private medical records or business secrets. Once data is on a public blockchain, you can't delete it, ever. That's a problem for things like GDPR, which actually give people the right to be forgotten. And then there's confidential business data, personal identity information. Hybrid systems are being built to address this using off-chain storage, zero-knowledge proofs, and private blockchains, but it's still a challenge. So what's the verdict here? Blockchain isn't a silver bullet. It's powerful, it's disruptive, but it's also evolving, and like the early days of the internet, it's rough around the edges. The good news is that people all over the world, developers, startups, governments, are all working to solve these problems, and progress is happening fast. So where is blockchain going next? Because this space is evolving fast, like really fast, and we're not just talking about coins going up and down in price. We're talking about how this tech could reshape everything we do online. Let's look at the biggest trend shaping the future of blockchain: Layer 2 solutions and scalability. Remember how we said blockchains like Ethereum can only handle a few dozen transactions per second? Well, that's why Layer 2 networks are becoming a big deal. Layer 2s are built on top of existing blockchains to make them faster and cheaper. They handle transactions off the main chain and then settle them later. It's kind of like doing a bunch of small transactions offline and then writing one summary on chain. And some examples for this is like Arbitrum and Optimism rollups for Ethereum. And then we have the Lightning Network for Bitcoin micropayments. Look, these tools are scaling blockchain in ways we've never seen before, bringing us closer to real-time, cheap transactions, even during high traffic. And secondly, we have the rise of Web3 and decentralized applications. Web3 is the idea of an internet that's owned by users, powered by tokens, free from gatekeepers like big tech. We've already seen decentralized apps, or dApps, that let people share files without let's say Dropbox, IPFS. Log in without Google or Facebook. Sign in with Ethereum, or even like stream without YouTube. LivePeer and Theta. Then there's also earning money playing games, Axie, Infinity. Though it had its ups and downs, those rule. It's early, yes, but we're moving toward an internet where users actually own their digital lives, assets, and data. Thirdly, the tokenization of everything. We've already tokenized digital art, but what if we tokenize real estate, company shares, music rights, game items, even your reputation? With blockchain, anything of value can be represented as a token, traded peer-to-peer, and verified instantly. That's not just convenient, it's a fundamental shift in how value moves. Think of it this way. Your house could have a token that lives on-chain. When you sell it, ownership transfers instantly with a smart contract. No lawyers, no weeks of waiting. That's already being piloted in places like Switzerland, Dubai, and Singapore. Fourth, we have enterprise and government adoption. Quietly behind the crypto headlines, governments and corporations are experimenting with blockchain technology. Central banks are developing CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Walmart and Maersk are using it for logistics. The EU and China are both investing in blockchain infrastructure. Starbucks uses blockchain to track where your coffee beans come from. Some of this will be public, some private, but the key takeaway is that blockchain is becoming infrastructure, just like cloud computing did 15 years ago. And fifth, we have interoperability and cross-chain communication. Right now, blockchains are like isolated islands. Ethereum can't talk to Solana. Bitcoin can't directly interact with Avalanche. That's changing with interoperability solutions, projects that allow chains to talk to each other, swap assets, and share data. And projects like Cosmos, the Internet of Blockchains, Polkadot, Chainlink, CCIP for cross-chain smart contracts. The goal is to make blockchain feel like one unified experience, not a fragmented mess. And sixth, we have mass adoption. And mass adoption will be invisible. Here's the truth. Most people don't care how blockchain works, just like they don't care how the internet works, right? And that's the future. Blockchain will power systems behind the scenes while users just enjoy the benefits. Faster payments, greater privacy, true ownership, and instant settlement. Eventually, we won't say I'm using blockchain app. We will say I'm sending money or I'm playing a game, and it'll happen on chain without you even noticing. So where is blockchain going? It's getting faster, more scalable, more user-friendly, and more connected. And in the next decade, it's going to quietly become part of everything. Finance, gaming, identity, art, commerce, even governments. It won't happen overnight, but make no mistake, it's already happening. All right, let's bring it all together. Blockchain isn't just about crypto, it's about trust without middlemen. It's a new way to store data, transfer value, and build systems that are transparent, secure, and global by design. We covered how blockchain started with Bitcoin, what's inside a block, how transactions are verified and recorded, and the consensus mechanism that keeps the system honest, real-world use cases beyond money, and the challenges and future of the fast-evolving technology. Whether you're here out of curiosity because you want to invest or you're thinking of building something on blockchain, it's clear this technology is here to stay, and it's only getting more and more powerful. The best part is that we're still early, you're not too late. In fact, you're right on time. So If this video helped you understand blockchain better, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notification because I've got more videos coming your way, like smart contracts, crypto, DeFi, NFTs, AI, and everything in between. And if you've got questions or ideas you want me to cover, drop them in the comments. I read them all. Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you made it to the end because understanding blockchain isn't just about technology. It's about preparing for the next era of the internet. Have a good one, whatever you're doing, and I'll see you in the next video.